Limelight, and my name is Prince Apollo. And this evening we explore the concerns raised by observers who think that in the upcoming 2026 elections, there could be a recurring trend of abuse of human rights and violence. And to explore this issue, we have been joined by Dr. Livingstone Sewanyana, and Dr. Sewanyana is the founding executive director for a foundation for human rights initiative. He's also a human rights lawyer. He's also a human rights lawyer. Welcome to the program, Doctor.
Good evening, Apollo. Good evening, our viewers.
Let's go straight and talk about this concern that in the 2026 elections, there could be a recurring trend of abuse of human rights. In your experience, what do you see?
As we are all aware, this is the election season. In the run-up to the 2026 elections, there are a number of activities that have to be carried out before the elections take place in January. Among them are party primaries, as well as nominations, campaigns, and of course, during such events, we experience, like we have done in the past, a lot of violence, vote rigging, use of excessive force, and use of hate speech. This is particularly disturbing because we expect that elections should be characterized by an atmosphere of peace, where those who seek to contest for positions of authority express their need, and those who support them equally mobilize, and at the same time they seek to impart among the population their ideas, and this we feel should be done peacefully and in a civilized manner. As we have all noted in the recent NRM primaries, we had excesses. We had cases of intimidation. We had cases of harassment. We had cases of hate speech. We also witnessed cases of vote rigging. That spells doom for an election, because those people who engage in those activities do not restrict themselves to primaries, party primary. They also are likely to behave in a similar manner in the general election, and that really worries us. Besides that, we have also started witnessing high-handedness of security forces, especially in the current exercise of nominations. We are aware that just yesterday, sympathizers of NUP and those who sought nomination were treated harshly by the security forces, something we condemn and we think is unacceptable. So as we prepare for the 2026 elections, it's important for all players, namely the candidates, their supporters, those who are engaged in managing the exercise, should behave in accordance with the guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission. Non-adherence to that is likely to breed instances of violence and, of course, hate speech.
Besides the guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission during this period to guide the processes during this period, in preparation for the upcoming elections, what else should have been done to avoid these recurring incidents of abuse of human rights?
We need to be mindful that whether there's an election or not, there are certain government officials or institutions which are charged with certain responsibilities.
Sure.
For example, the Uganda Police Force under Article 211 and 212, they are supposed to maintain law and order. That should be done without bias. That should be done in adherence, strict adherence to the code of conduct for law enforcement officials. Arbitrary treatment, arbitrary arrests, or prohibition of meetings of candidates should actually be avoided. Secondly, it is always expected that there would be adequate voter education.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there has not been any voter education carried out, whether by the appropriate body or by non-government organizations. And that leaves a very important gap, because unless people understand why they have to vote, unless people know what it means to avoid elections, unless people know what is expected of them during campaigns and during voting, you expect behavior that is contrary to acceptable practice. So the lack of voter education in itself is a major gap in the run-up to this election. Besides this also, we expect that perpetrators of abuse, those who engage in acts which are unacceptable, such as vote rigging, hate speech, would be subject to legal proceedings. We expect that the law enforcement officials would act in order to deter possible excesses in the run-up. So there are certain things that need to have been done or to be done in preparation for the 2026 general elections. And if that is not done, then arbitrariness could actually characterize that election.
I expect that several engagements would have been between stakeholders would partly help avoid such incidents. For instance, we would see the security forces being engaged by either you in the NGO world, or the Human Rights Commission, or other bodies concerned about this issue. Do you see this engagement happening, of course, to sensitize, but also to bring these issues on table?
This has not yet happened, but I know that the Electoral Commission will, at an appropriate time, as part of its calendar or as part of its roadmap, engage the security forces, because that has always been part of their agenda. We also hope that along the way, there will be an engagement with the candidates, because right now they are looking at nomination. Once candidates have been nominated, there will be a time when the Electoral Commission will be issuing guidelines to them, and we hope there will be an engagement. What is not clear there, however, is whether there will be an engagement of the population. Because this voter education is largely for the population. And by now, there should have been a number of meetings, radio broadcasts, TV broadcasts, posters, all aimed at sensitizing the public, which unfortunately is not the case. Maybe due to lack of funds, but also to the fact that on the part of civil society organizations, they are not empowered sufficiently to do so, because as you are aware, and our viewers are aware, it has cost implications.
Sure.
And ever since donors withdrew, it's no longer possible to fund such exercises of civic education and voter education. So we hope that the relevant government bodies, more so the Electoral Commission, the Human Rights Commission, will engage in an ambitious campaign of creating awareness about the process, hoping that they have the funds to do so.
Well, another aspect of this issue of human rights is the failure to table the electoral reforms. How do you think the failure to table and have electoral reforms affect this election, especially in the human rights aspect?
The demand for electoral reforms has been on the table for a very long time. Actually, if you go back to 2011, 2016, 2021 election, there was a need for this. There hasn't been sufficient interest by the powers that be in the reforms. And as such, we still experience elections without any serious regulatory reforms. It's unfortunate, I would say, but I think as a minimum, if law and order is maintained, if the players act in accordance with the rules, if the journalists, for example, the media, are given the space to report, and all the powers that be, guarantee the necessary space for all the different players, that should give some minimum comfort as to having a more acceptable electoral process. However, in many instances, we experience bias. We experience situations where those who are supposed to act independently unfortunately don't do so. And we have also had cases where those in the opposition are often targeted. If this is avoided, then I think even without the electoral reforms, we could still have a generally acceptable election. Of course, if we had electoral reforms, then it could have actually guaranteed a more peaceful, freer, fairer, and more just election.
Now, without electoral reforms, without adequate sensitization and civil and voter education, what can we expect?
Of course, what we expect is an election. Like we had in 2021, we had the election. Yes, there will be candidates who will vie for different positions. And of course, those who are keen on participating in the election will go out and vote. And we should expect an outcome of the election. What, of course, we cannot guarantee at this time without sensitization and reforms is whether people will come out in large numbers to vote, because they may not be sensitized enough as to whether they really need to participate. Two, whether those who are the right people will be elected. We can't guarantee, because the essence of civic education and voter education is to empower the population to make informed choices. So we can't guarantee that informed choices will be made. Of course, it is possible that we shall have opportunists who, using money, fraud, will be elected to different offices. What I can guarantee with some degree of certainty, is that we may get irresponsible leaders who cannot deliver. And of course, that is not even new.
That's
it has been
unfortunate.
part of the game. So it is possible that we shall have an election where people will not vote the right leaders. And of course, those leaders will not be able to deliver to their satisfaction.
Finally, from me, besides incidents of human rights abuse, including harassment, torture, and more especially these incidents that are committed by security agencies, what other human rights abuses are experienced or are expected during election period?
One aspect that we must never underestimate is the use of money in an election. The growing commercialization of politics. That in itself undermines people's right to choose. If a person is bribed to vote or to choose a particular candidate X, that already undermines that person's rights because he's not making an informed choice. 2, freedom of speech. It's important that people are given the freedom to express themselves. Candidates should be able to sell their manifestos peacefully. And also, their sympathizers and supporters should be given leverage and room to provide the support. Because sometimes we have seen cases where supporters have been arrested, mistreated. As you know, in the you recall in the 2021 elections, in the run-up to those elections, we had 57 people killed arbitrarily, just because they were protesting. Again, those are potential violations. Using, if I go back to what happened in the Kawempe by-elections, I think you could see the extent to which so-called security forces blatantly abuse people's rights, beating them,
Beating journalists.
So we should not condone such acts. So we expect that freedom of the media will be guaranteed and respected. Beyond that, we also hope, and it's important, that the will of the people is respected and upheld. It's one thing for people to vote for X, and it's another thing for those concerned to announce Y. We are hoping that we are going to an election with a degree of sincerity, that the right people will not only be chosen, but will be declared winners.
That's another abuse.
Another abuse. If someone
of rights
is voted and is not declared or appointed, then in itself, that's an abuse of one's freedom to choose. Yes.
One last issue maybe we can talk about is the incidents we have witnessed when people come to polling stations and they don't find their names on the register. Isn't that another blatant violation of one's rights?
Of course, if one has fulfilled all the requirements to be nominated as a candidate and is not...
No, even a voter, not only candidates.
As a candidate and he misses out on the register of those to be elected or voted for, and those who are supposed to vote, if they find their names are not on the register, that itself is an abuse of their rights. Because in the first instance, if they register to vote, they are eligible to vote, and they go out to vote and do not find their names, that would amount to a blatant abuse of their right to vote. So we expect that those involved in the electoral process will do all what it takes to make sure that the registers truly reflect those who register themselves to vote. And that calls for an inspection of the register early enough so that there's confirmation of voters. Short of that, that definitely will be an abuse of their fundamental right to vote.
Your final message?
My call to fellow citizens is that as we head towards the 2026 elections, we need to exercise some degree of calm. Those in authority must not display an unwarranted bias. They must not abuse their authority. Their authority is for the benefit of Ugandans. Those who seek to contest for particular positions must ensure that their voters behave in a manner consistent with the electoral guidelines, and that the officers and all those charged with handling the election will do so professionally and in a manner that confers confidence in the ordinary voter.
Well,
and may the best win.
Good. Thank you so much, Dr. Livingstone Sewanyana. Thank you so much for speaking to our viewers.
My absolute pleasure.
That's it from Dr. Livingstone Sewanyana, the founding executive director of Foundation for Human Rights Initiative and a human rights lawyer. We can only wait to see how it will work out. But like he said, there is not enough voter education. There is inadequate preparation in order to avoid these incidents. But we must go into an election. My name is Prince Apollo. We appreciate all of you, and we will catch up again next Friday in another edition of the Limelight. Good evening. God bless you, and God bless Uganda.